Let me tell you the single most devastating moment for an avoidantly attached person, and why for you it can become the most freeing turning point of your life. It's not the breakup, it's not the last fight. The real pain comes months, sometimes even years later, when they finally realize that you're gone. I don't mean you blocked them for a week or ignored them for a few days. I mean completely gone from their emotional world. You've moved on, built a life without them, and here's the most powerful part. You're actually happy. If you've ever been in love with someone who kept pulling away the closer you got, then you know the push-pull cycle. One day they're warm, texting you, making you feel seen and wanted. The next, they turn cold, distant, unreachable. And you're left sitting there asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Here's the truth. It wasn't you. What you ran into was called avoidant attachment. And today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 psychological and behavioral stages an avoidant goes through when they finally realize that their ex has permanently moved on. I'll break down what happens in their mind, what they do next, and why understanding these stages will change not only how you see them, but also how you see yourself. By the end of this, you won't just understand their panic, you'll see your own strength in a way you may have never seen it before. Who are avoidants? Before we dive into the 5 stages, I want you to really understand who we're talking about. Because when you understand the psychology, you stop taking their behavior so personally. An avoidantly attached person is someone who truly wants connection. They want love, they want closeness. But the moment it feels too real, too close, or too emotionally risky, they back away. They're not cruel, they're not heartless, they're not playing some clever game. What they are really doing is protecting themselves from what feels like danger to them, emotional vulnerability. This isn't about you being too much or not enough. It's about how they learned to survive love a long time ago. Most avoidants grew up in homes where their emotional needs weren't met consistently. Maybe their caregivers were physically present but emotionally unavailable. Maybe love came with strings, criticism, or conditions. So as children, they built emotional armor. They told themselves, if I don't depend on anyone, I can't be hurt. And fast forward into adulthood, that armor becomes their relationship pattern. They can date, they can flirt, they can even be affectionate. But once intimacy starts to feel real, their nervous system interprets it as a threat. They pull away, they shut down, or they pour their focus into anything other than the relationship. Here's the tricky part. In the early days, avoidance can actually seem very charming, confident, and even safe. But when closeness starts to grow, their walls go up. It's not about losing interest, it's about losing control. The attachment panic window. Now here's something really important you need to know, something called the attachment panic window. Unlike anxious attachers who panic immediately after a breakup, avoidants feel relief at first. They tell themselves, see, I'm fine without them. But here's the twist. That relief doesn't last. Somewhere between 12 and 24 months later, something shifts. Maybe they see you happy with someone else. Maybe enough time passes that they realize you are not waiting anymore. That's when their suppressed attachment system slams awake, and the panic hits. This panic is not logical, it's primal. Their brain interprets your permanent absence as abandonment, even if they were the one who walked away. And that is what sets the 5 stages of panic into motion. Now, I need you to understand this clearly. Their panic is not proof that you were the one. Their panic is not proof that they've changed. It's proof that their avoidance has stopped working the way it used to. And yes, during this time, you may see behaviors from them that you never saw when you were together. Stage 1. The flutter of unease. Stage 1 is what I call the flutter of unease. This is the very first crack in their emotional armor. They may not even realize it yet, but something feels off inside them. For months, sometimes even years, they've held on to this quiet belief. If I ever want to, I can reach back out. They'll still be there. They'll still feel the same. That thought gave them comfort. It gave them a sense of control. It was their safety blanket. But in stage 1, they start to sense, without hard proof yet, that something has changed. They go to check your social media and suddenly, there's nothing. No cryptic posts, no quiet signs that you're still emotionally circling them. Mutual friends no longer bring up your name. The small signals they once relied on to measure your emotional closeness are gone. And this absence creates the first flutter inside them, a subtle, almost unconscious anxiety. Wait, do I still matter to them? Now let me be clear, they're not panicking yet. At this stage, it's just curiosity mixed with a faint discomfort. But for an avoidant, even that is unusual. They've spent a lifetime keeping emotional need at a distance. So the moment they feel even a tiny pull toward wanting reassurance, it unsettles them. Here's what often happens. They'll casually test the waters. Maybe they like an old post. Maybe they send a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" message. Something light. Something with plausible deniability. So if you don't respond, they can pretend it meant nothing. But underneath, that's them checking for your pulse. If you respond warmly, they file it away as confirmation. Okay, I still matter. I'm safe. If you don't respond, that flutter grows stronger. It lingers. And now their brain quietly starts scanning for more signs. This is why stage 1 is so powerful for you, because most people don't even realize it's happening. You're living your life completely unaware, while they've quietly started to notice your absence. But from this moment forward, their inner story begins to shift. The illusion of control starts to break. And that is the seed that grows into full-blown panic later. Stage 1 is just the whisper before the storm. Stage 2. Realization. You're not waiting. Stage 2 is where the unease sharpens into fear. For avoidants, the relationship never fully ends when you walk away. They carry this quiet assumption. You'll always keep a piece of your heart reserved for me. I can take my time. You'll still be there. But stage 2 shatters this assumption. Maybe they notice you've stopped engaging entirely. No likes, no comments, no birthday messages. Or maybe they hear from a mutual friend that you've been traveling, making new friends, even dating someone new. And here's the kicker, you look genuinely happy. For someone with avoidant attachment, that's not just news. That's a shock to their nervous system. Because now, they're not just sensing distance. They're witnessing replacement. They realize you've reallocated your emotional energy. The love, the care, the attention you once gave them. You've given it to others, or to yourself. And this is the point where abandonment terror begins to flicker. Abandonment terror is not a conscious, "I miss them" feeling. It's primal. It's wired into the survival part of the brain. Your absence becomes a threat to their emotional stability, even if they've been fine without you for months. If you're still in contact, you might notice them asking oddly specific questions about your life. Subtle hints. So, seeing anyone? Noticing small changes. Your new hobbies, your new haircut, your new energy. If you're not in contact, they'll use indirect routes, asking mutual friends. Quietly scrolling through tagged photos, watching your stories without engaging. And here's the irony. The more they see you thriving without them, the more it scratches at their sense of significance. Why? Because for the first time, they're forced to face the possibility that their back pocket option, you, may no longer be an option. And that's not just about losing a partner. It's about losing the power of knowing you are still there. This is where your growth becomes undeniable. Because while they're starting to spiral internally, you're building a life that doesn't include them. And that is the most powerful position you can be in. Stage 3. Integration of loss. Stage 3 is the real turning point. I call it integration of loss. In stage 1, they felt the flutter of unease. In stage 2, they realized you weren't waiting. But in stage 3, it hits them that you've actually absorbed the breakup into your life story and moved forward with strength. This is not about pretending to be fine on social media. It's not about forcing happiness. It's about truly processing the pain, learning from it, and continuing with your life without them. You've stopped replaying the old arguments. You've stopped obsessing over what you could have done differently. You no longer make decisions with them in mind. Instead, you've taken the lessons and folded them into your growth. For them, this realization is deeply unsettling. Avoidants often carry the hidden belief that their absence leaves a permanent hole. But when they see that you filled that space with new friendships, new hobbies, career growth, peace of mind, it completely breaks their internal script. Psychologically, this creates cognitive dissonance. Their brain is forced to hold two conflicting truths at once. 1. They needed me for stability. 2. They're clearly doing better without me. And that contradiction is not something they can shake off easily. If they're watching from a distance, they'll notice little signs. You celebrate achievements without mentioning them. You appear lighter, calmer, happier, not performing for attention, but genuinely living. If you're still in some contact, you may notice subtle changes in their tone. They might drop nostalgic comments or jokingly bring up old memories. But behind this, they're testing to see if the door is still open. Here's where your strength becomes clear. You're no longer reacting to them. You're not ignoring them to get a reaction. You're not posting to make them jealous. You're simply not thinking of them at all when you make choices. This kind of emotional independence is something they can feel, even without words. And for someone who built their sense of safety around emotional control, it is both confusing and threatening. Because if they couldn't break you when they left, what does that say about the hold they thought they had? Stage 4, the upgrade. Stage 4 is a gut punch. I call it the upgrade. Here, the focus shifts from your absence to your replacement. And by replacement, I don't just mean another partner, although that can be part of it. I mean the entire upgrade of your life. They see you thriving in ways they never expected. You're in a healthier, more fulfilling relationship, or maybe you're achieving new milestones in career, friendships, or personal growth. You're trying new things, traveling, building passions that light you up. You're radiating energy. And here's the part they never imagined. You might actually be better off without them. Avoidants often underestimate the people they push away. It's not out of malice, it's because their own fear of vulnerability limits their imagination of what's possible. But when they see you not just surviving, but thriving, it shakes their entire framework. This is where status loss panic begins. They're no longer the center of your world. Someone else, or something else, has taken that place, and you're clearly enjoying it. That creates a mix of envy and regret inside them. If you're active on social media, this is when they may start quietly watching everything. They may not like your posts, but they're scrolling, zooming in, analyzing every detail. Every smile, every adventure, every moment without them feels like proof that you're better without them. If they hear from friends that you've found someone new, or that you're building a better life, it cuts even deeper. This is when you might see odd behavior from them. They may suddenly start posting about their own upgrades. Sometimes it's real, often it's staged, just to counter what they see from you. They may try to reappear in subtle ways. A random message, a comment on something small, breadcrumbs to see if they can still pull you back into their orbit. But here's the difference. When you've upgraded, you're operating from a place of choice, not lack. You're not looking over your shoulder to see if they notice. You're too busy living. And that is why stage 4 is so destabilizing for them. It's not just that they've lost you, it's that they've lost the role of being the best thing in your life. Stage 5, Irrelevance. Now we come to stage 5, the stage they never expected. I call it irrelevance. And let me be clear, irrelevance is not the same as hate. It's not anger, not even pain. Those emotions still mean they occupy space in your heart. Irrelevance means they don't matter to you anymore. You're not avoiding them because you're mad. You're simply not thinking about them at all. They've become background noise. For an avoidantly attached person, this is the ultimate loss of psychological control. Up until now, they lived with the quiet confidence that, deep down, they could still affect you. They could still make you smile, still upset you, still rattle your peace if they wanted to. But irrelevance takes that away completely. And they don't realize it instantly. It often comes as a slow awareness. Maybe they reach out and your reply is polite but emotionally neutral. Maybe they see you in person and there's no spark in your eyes. You treat them with the same warmth you'd give to any stranger. For them, this is a complete shock. Because even in stage 4, the upgrade, they could still imagine they mattered. But in stage 5, they face the truth. They're no longer part of your emotional world. This is when their attachment panic peaks. Their brain scrambles for ways to get back in because irrelevance feels like permanent exile. Even if they were the ones who left, this is the stage that shows them the finality of their loss. And for you, this is freedom. Not shaky, uncertain freedom, but deep peace. The kind of peace that comes when their chapter in your life is truly closed. This is why so many avoidants try to come back too late. By the time they realize they're irrelevant, you've built a new life where they simply don't fit. Even if they make a dramatic return, it falls flat, because you're no longer playing the same game. Irrelevance is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming your energy so fully that their presence or absence no longer shapes your emotional weather. For them, this is the deepest loss. For you, it is the greatest win. The behavioral spiral. Once an avoidantly attached person hits stage 5, irrelevance, they don't just quietly accept it. Instead, they begin to spiral. This spiral is where you start to see behaviors that look nothing like the calm, controlled person you once knew. I call it the behavioral spiral because it's a mix of grasping, testing, and sometimes boundary pushing that gets worse the longer they feel shut out. It usually begins with information gathering. They may start watching your social media stories every day. They may check LinkedIn to see where you're working. They may ask mutual friends oddly specific questions about your love life, your health, your plans. This isn't casual curiosity. It's an attempt to pull themselves back into your mental space. Then comes the communication burst. At first, it's light and random. Hey, saw this and thought of you. If you don't respond, it escalates. Late-night emotional texts, I miss you calls, or even long emails filled with apologies and promises. The less you respond, the more desperate they become. If that still doesn't work, they may attempt proximity strategies. They suddenly show up at your gym, your coffee shop, or a mutual friend's party they never used to attend. For them, being physically near you feels like testing whether there's still any emotional connection left. And then it can slide into boundary testing. Because desperation can override judgment, they may do things that feel intrusive. They might contact your family. They might send gifts to your home. They might comment on your posts in ways that feel too personal. To them, it's just trying to reach out. But to you, it feels like pressure or even invasion. At this point, social media often becomes a weapon. They might post pictures with someone new. They might share cryptic quotes. They may even resurface old memories they think will provoke you. But none of this is about moving on. It's about pulling your attention back to them. Behind it all, their emotional state swings wildly. One day they seem upbeat and casual. The next, they're heavy with nostalgia and regret. Because under the surface, they're in attachment panic, trying anything to regain the emotional control they lost. And here's what you need to understand. The spiral is not proof of deep love. It's proof that their old coping mechanisms no longer work. If you mistake their intensity for transformation, you risk stepping back into the same painful cycle that broke you the first time. Coping mechanisms: healthy versus unhealthy. Once the spiral begins, avoidantly attached, people need to find ways to cope with the panic. Some coping strategies are healthy, most are not. Let's start with the unhealthy coping strategies: denial and rationalization, telling themselves you're just taking space and you'll come back. Bargaining, promising sudden change if you give them one more chance. Idealizing the past, obsessing over the good memories while ignoring why the relationship ended. Replacement relationships, jumping into something new quickly to recreate the comfort you once gave them. Numbing, drinking, overworking, or distracting themselves with anything that avoids the pain. These strategies are survival tactics. They don't solve the deeper problem, the fear of intimacy and vulnerability. But there are also healthy coping strategies, and yes, some avoidants do reach this point. Therapy or coaching. Not to win you back, but to understand their own patterns. Journaling and reflection. Sitting with their emotions instead of running from them. Building friendships, learning to connect without the fear-filled intensity of romance. Self-improvement, health, career, personal growth, for themselves, not to impress you. The difference is simple. If their coping is just about managing the panic to win you back, you'll see a quick burst of change followed by a slide back to old habits. If it's about genuinely facing their fear and growing, the process is slow, steady, and doesn't depend on whether you're watching. The return attempt. Now we reach the stage so many of you have experienced. The return attempt. When the unhealthy coping stops working and the healthy coping feels too slow, some avoidants make a big, dramatic move to get back into your life. And I need you to hear this clearly. This is often the most emotionally confusing stage for you. Here's what it usually looks like. Emotional transparency. Suddenly, they begin telling you all the things you begged to hear during the relationship. Apologies and vulnerability. Admitting their mistakes, sharing deep emotions, explaining their behavior, grand gestures, expensive gifts, public declarations, surprise appearances, things that look like they came out of a movie. Promise overload. I'll go to therapy. I'll change everything. I'll be exactly what you wanted. Negotiation mode. Agreeing to any condition you set, no matter how big. Recruiting allies. Asking mutual friends or family to vouch for them, even pressuring you to give them a chance. It's intense. It's flattering. And for many, it feels like proof that the avoidant has finally changed. But here's the hard truth. If this return is fueled by panic rather than genuine transformation, the changes won't last. Once the urgency fades, so does the effort. That's why I always say, don't measure their growth in the heat of their return. Measure it over time. Because words are easy. Grand gestures are easy. But consistent emotional availability, that's the true test. What's really happening inside them? So what is going on in their psychology during this dramatic return? At its core, it's desperation. Their brain is in attachment panic mode. You've moved beyond their control. You've built a life without them. And their survival instincts scream at them to do whatever it takes to pull you back. That's why the return attempt can look so over the top. They're not just trying to win you back. They're trying to calm their own panic. But here's the key. Panic is not transformation. Transformation is slow, steady, and requires deep inner work. Panic just drives dramatic gestures in the hope of instant relief. If you don't take them back. Now, what happens if you don't take them back? This is where we reach what I call the aftermath. And for an avoidant, it's often one of the most sobering chapters of their life. When their return attempt fails, two realities hit them at once. 1. The reality that you're truly gone. 2. The reality that they created this themselves. At first, it's devastation. And here's the twist. It often feels deeper than what they felt at the breakup. Why? Because during the breakup, they still believed they could always come back. But now, the door is shut. Psychologically, this forces them into one of two paths. Path 1, growth. The pain pushes them into real self-reflection. They face their fear of intimacy. They do the therapeutic work. Slowly, they start building the capacity for deeper, healthier relationships. Path 2, regression. They double down on avoidance. They convince themselves they're better off alone. And this only strengthens the cycle, making future relationships harder. For you, this aftermath is where real peace deepens. You are no longer living in reaction to them. Their emotional weather no longer dictates your life. Sometimes they'll stay in the background, occasionally peeking into your world. Sometimes they disappear completely. Either way, the chapter is closed. The aftermath and your freedom. So here's the truth you need to hold on to. Their panic, their spiral, their dramatic return attempt. None of it changes one simple fact. Your healing belongs to you. You get to keep the growth. You get to keep the clarity. You get to keep the freedom you fought for. Understanding their 5 stages isn't about keeping score. It's not about waiting for them to regret losing you. It's about reclaiming your perspective. So you stop wondering if you mattered and start seeing the truth. You did, you do, but their journey is theirs to take. And your healing, that's yours to protect. Why this matters? If they are panicking, if they are spiraling, if they are even knocking on your door again, remember, urgency is not transformation. Real change takes time, and real change does not depend on whether you're watching. By the time you've built a new life, their dramatic return cannot undo what's been done. You've grown into someone who no longer lives in their shadow, and that is your greatest strength. Closing truth. You've built a life without them, and that is power. Guard it. Grow it, live it, because at the end of it all, this was never about their panic. This was about your peace. Looking back at the journey. We've now walked through the 5 stages of an avoidance panic, from that first flutter of unease to the final stage of irrelevance. And along the way, you've seen something important. Every stage they go through is about them trying to manage their fear of vulnerability, not about your worth. In stage 1, they quietly checked if you were still waiting. In stage 2, they panicked when they saw you were not. In stage 3, they felt the shock of you moving forward with strength. In stage 4, they faced the gut punch of your upgrade. In stage 5, they lost all power in your life when they became irrelevant. After that came the spiral, the grasping, the testing, the desperate attempts. And then came the dramatic return, full of promises and grand gestures. But through it all, the lesson remains the same. Their panic is not your responsibility. Your healing is the core. Your healing journey is about you. It's about no longer living in reaction to their moods, no longer shaping your life around their absence or presence, no longer waiting for them to wake up and finally see your value. Because you always had value. You always mattered. You were always enough. Their inability to meet you in love had nothing to do with your worth, and everything to do with their own fear. What comes next? So, what happens now? For many avoidants, this becomes a turning point in their own story. Some truly face their patterns and grow. Others sink deeper into avoidance. That's their choice, their path, their work. But for you, this is freedom. Freedom to write your next chapter without them. Freedom to give your energy to people who meet you with openness instead of fear. Freedom to live fully, without waiting for anyone else's validation. Final reminder. If you take nothing else from this, remember this. Their panic is not love. Their urgency is not transformation. Their spiral is not proof of your importance. You mattered all along. And you don't need their recognition to prove it. What you do need is to protect the peace you've created and to trust yourself with the life you're building. The closing chapter. You've walked through the storm. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the push and pull, the confusion, the pain, and finally, the release. And now, you stand in a place of strength. Because the truth is, this was never really about them. It was always about you. About your healing, about your growth, about learning that your peace does not depend on another person's presence or absence. The avoidance journey. An avoidance panic may look dramatic. It may look like regret. It may even sound like love. But it's not transformation. Transformation is slow. It's steady. It requires them to sit with discomfort and do the work. And whether they choose that path or not, it's not your job to fix them. Their journey is theirs. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself is letting go of the need to wait for their change. Your freedom. You've proven something powerful to yourself. You can live, grow, and thrive without them. The life you've built is your own. The peace you've created is real. And the freedom you now hold cannot be taken back. So protect it, grow it, live it. Because at the end of this story, you are not the one left behind. You are the one who rose. Final truth. Their panic is temporary. Your strength is permanent. Their fear defines their past. Your freedom defines your future. And that is the real ending of this story. The final summary. Looking back, you can now see the full cycle of an avoidance panic. Flutter of unease. That quiet check to see if you're still there. Realization, the fear when they notice you've stopped waiting. Integration of loss, the shock of seeing you move forward with real strength. The upgrade, the gut punch when they realize you've built a better life without them. Irrelevance, the stage they never expected, when they no longer matter in your world. After that came the spiral, their desperate attempts to pull you back. Then the return attempt, filled with grand gestures and promises. And finally, the aftermath, where they must face the truth. You're truly gone, and their choices created that loss. Your power. But through every stage, the story has shifted more toward you. You stopped being defined by their actions. You stopped shaping your life around their absence. You stopped waiting. Instead, you built peace. You grew stronger. You reclaimed your energy. Their panic does not define you. Your healing defines you. The real ending. In the end, this journey is not about revenge or making them regret. It's about freedom. Freedom from the cycle, freedom from the doubt, freedom to live fully without needing their approval. Because love is not proven by panic, and worth is not defined by whether someone finally sees it too late. Your worth has been there all along. Closing lines. So here's where it ends. They may keep spiraling, they may keep knocking, but you've moved on, you've built a life that doesn't need them. And that is your true power. Guard it, grow it, live it,